Good evening. Hope you all had a great day. Most of the market had a rough day, although the Nasdaq did end in the green by a good margin. The Dow performed the worst, ending the day with a loss of 1.38%. The S&P 500 fell 0.56%, while the Nasdaq gained 0.53%. First and foremost, let's get into the weekly jobless claims data. Weekly jobless claims came in lower than expected, but still remain stubbornly high, as this was the 15th week in a row that claims topped 1 million. Claims for the week ending July 4th totaled 1.314 million, while estimates were for a count of 1.39 million. The total marked a decrease of 99,000 from a week earlier, according to the Labor Department. Continuing claims fell sharply, dropping 698,000 from a week earlier to 18.06 million. Claims under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program also totaled 1.039 million, an increase of nearly 42,000 from the previous week. PUA recipients now total 14.4 million, bringing the total of those claiming benefits to a record 32.9 million. Quote, "We still have a long road ahead of us. These are definitely good numbers, but this is going to be a long and bumpy road," end quote, said Liz Ann Sonders, chief investment strategist at Charles Schwab. Quote, "With more bankruptcies and job cuts announced in the retail sector, for example, the economy remains at significant risk in the weeks and months ahead," end quote, according to Mark Hamrick, senior economic analyst at Bankrate. Hamrick also noted that with the rise of new COVID-19 cases, there could be another surge in jobless claims. He added, quote, "Hopes for an accelerated, sustained, and successful reopening of the economy have hit roadblocks. This raises concern about the economy's rebound," end quote. Lastly, the unemployment rate is currently at 11.1%, down from the peak of 14.7% in April. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said that the White House is opting for a more narrow aid compared to what they previously had supported, even as coronavirus cases continue to rise. Mnuchin added that, quote, "We do support another round," end quote, in regards to giving stimulus checks to individuals. Mnuchin also shed a little bit of light on the issue of the fall of income many individuals will face once the $600 per week federal unemployment benefit expires. Remember that the unemployment rate is still currently sitting at 11.1%. Mnuchin said the White House wants to change rather than extend the enhanced unemployment provision. However, he did not provide any details. Mnuchin did say that the White House supports an extension of the Paycheck Protection Program, but wants the relief to be, quote, much more targeted," end quote. He also downplayed the need for more relief money for states and municipalities, even though they have been severely hit, and with many currently considering cutting some essential services. He said the administration does not want to, quote, bail out states that were, quote, mismanaged before the virus hit. China responded to the United States as tensions between the two superpowers rise. State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said, quote, "China's U.S. policy remains unchanged. We're still willing to grow China-U.S. relations with goodwill and sincerity. Some friends in the U.S. might have become suspicious or even wary of growing China. I'd like to stress here again that China never intends to challenge or replace the U.S. or have full confrontation with the U.S. What we care most about is to improve the livelihood of our people. President Xi has underlined on many occasions that we have 1,000 reasons to make the China-U.S. relationship a success, and none whatsoever to wreck it," end quote. Wang said that China thinks the U.S. has too much paranoia. He said, quote, "It seems as if every Chinese investment is politically driven, every Chinese student is a spy, and every cooperation initiative is a scheme with hidden agenda," end quote. He also noted the tension between the two governments, saying that the U.S.-China relationship is, quote, is faced with the most severe challenge since the establishment of diplomatic ties, end quote. Vice Foreign Minister Li Yucheng said, quote, neither China nor the U.S. can mold the other in one's own image, and China-U.S. relations should not be driven by ideologies. I also find it hard to understand, why does the U.S. always seek to change the other country in state-to-state relations? Why does it try to impose its own ideology on others? What is the point of stopping a country from pursuing its development path that has proved successful? There are essential differences between China and the United States in their social systems. With hopes to bolster his presidential bid, Joe Biden released a huge new potential plan called Buy America, which calls for a $400 billion four-year increase in government purchasing of U.S.-based goods and services, plus $300 billion in new research and development in U.S. technology concerns. Senior advisor Jake Sullivan said, quote, this will be the largest mobilization of public investments in procurement, infrastructure, and R&D since World War II. Biden said, quote, what's going on here? We need to build back, not just to where we were, but build back to better than what we've ever been. We're going to take a monumental step forward for the prosperity, power, safety, and dignity of all American workers, end quote. This should not come as a surprise, as Biden wants to capitalize on his union ties and deliver on oft-made claims he can win back working-class voters who fueled Trump's win in 2016. Biden will continue in coming weeks with an energy plan to combat the climate crisis and a third package on what the campaign has dubbed the, quote, caring economy, with a focus on making childcare and elder care more affordable and less of an impediment to working-age Americans. Coronavirus fears grew today as both California and Florida hit new records for average daily cases, and they happen to be accompanied by 10 other states who hit new records. Florida notably saw a spike in positive test rate, which recently hit 18.4%. As of Wednesday, there are currently 40 states with growing coronavirus cases, compared to a 7-day moving average. The number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 also grew by 5% or more in 25 states. Of the 25 states, 13 hit record highs in average hospitalizations. The country has reported about 52,444 new cases per day on average over the past 7 days, which is up 20.3% compared with a week ago. In response to the surge in cases, Dr. Fauci had made some negative comments. Fauci said that states that are experiencing a surge in cases should consider shutting down. He said, quote, what we are seeing is exponential growth. It went from an average of about 20,000 to 40,000 and 50,000. That's doubling. If you continue doubling, 2 times 50 is 100. Any state that is having a serious problem, that state should seriously look at shutting down. It's not for me to say because each state is different, end quote. Some governors and states have shown resistance to shutting down again. Fauci also expressed disappointment in the American public, saying, quote, obviously, you'd like to see a consistent message all along that people understand. But for better or worse, unfortunately, that's not exactly what's going on, end quote. On top of this, the World Health Organization director said, quote, the virus is not under control. It's getting worse. The total number of cases has doubled in the last 6 weeks, end quote. He also urged for national leaders to find a way to unite against the virus and to be able to learn from each other. He said, quote, the virus thrives on division, but is thwarted when we unite. How is it difficult for humans to unite and fight a common enemy that is killing people indiscriminately? Are we unable to distinguish or identify the common enemy? Can't we understand that the divisions and the cracks between us are an advantage for the virus? End quote. Only 2 sectors ended the day positive, which happened to be consumer services and tech, with each gaining close to 1%. Oil and gas had the worst day by far, as the sector lost more than 4% today. This terrible day was due to crude oil prices falling sharply, due to fears of the coronavirus may spark new lockdowns, which will in turn lower fuel consumption. U.S. gasoline demand is falling in areas where lockdowns are being reinstated, but it is recovering well on the East Coast, where coronavirus infections are under control. WTI crude ended the day down 2.6%, while Brent crude was down 1.6%. Telecommunications and financials also had rough days, with each being down more than 2%. The dandy table shows us that growth was spared in the sell-off today, while value stocks took the biggest hit as a whole. All small caps were negative, and small cap value and core were each down more than 2%. Mid cap value also suffered today, having a loss of 2.64%. F5 Networks had the best day in the S&P 500, posting a gain of 7.94%. F5 Networks is a company that specializes in the delivery, security, performance, and availability of web applications, including the availability of computing, storage, and network resources. Shares rose as Morgan Stanley upgraded the company to an overweight rating, while they were previously rated as equal weight. They also upped their price target by $40 to $175. The other big day came from AMD, which is a company that develops semiconductors such as computer processors. Shares gained 7.16% today as Bank of America said that due to strong gaming demand, there may be 10% upside to some semiconductor companies. The biggest loser today in the S&P 500 was Mohawk Industries, and they did so by a wide margin. Today, shares fell nearly 20% after allegations of accounting fraud from Deutsche Bank, who claims there were fictitious sales. The other poor day came from Hess Corporation, which is an energy company that has a focus in natural gas and crude oil. Shares fell 9.41% as the whole energy sector suffered due to the aforementioned fears of states shutting down again and crude oil demand suffering. Getting into earnings, we'll start off with Walgreens, ticker symbol WBA, which is the second most popular pharmacy store chain in the United States, trailing only CVS. This morning's earnings were disappointing, as Walgreens missed big on EPS and only slightly beat on revenue. Non-GAAP EPS came in at 83 cents for the quarter, missing estimates by a large 39 cents. Revenue did grow on a yearly basis, but by a slight 0.1%. On top of that, revenue only beat by a slim $310 million, as they collected revenue of $34.63 billion. Walgreens nevertheless upped their dividend, but did announce a suspension and share buybacks. Lastly, Walgreens announced that they will be cutting up to 4,000 jobs, which is around 7% of their workforce. Obviously, investors did not like this news, and shares ended the day down 7.76%. Lastly, we have Helen of Troy, ticker symbol HELE, which is a developer, designer, and marketer of popular household brand names, such as Hydro Flask, Braun, Honeywell, and Vicks. This morning's earnings beat expectations on all fronts. Non-GAAP EPS beat estimates by a wide $1.04, as Helen posted a gain of $2.53 per share for the quarter. Revenue beat estimates by a large margin as well. Revenue came in at $420.84 million for the quarter, beating estimates by $73.76 million and representing revenue growth of 11.8%. This growth is outstanding, especially during a time like this. Obviously, investors were pleased and had shares ending the day up slightly more than 5%. That is all that I have for you tonight. As always, I hope you have a nice rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.